People of the world, welcome to Marketing as a Foreign Language. This, the 261st episode. Shout out to everyone who's been downloading the podcast lately. Oh me, oh my, the numbers are growing and I love you. And guess what? I'm proud of you. Our guest today, who's going to be on in a couple of minutes, AJ Davis, is a conversion rate specialist. Oh yeah, so imagine doing A/B testing on a website to be as sure as a scientist could be about what precisely is working. Should we put the button at the top? Should we put the button at the bottom? Should we use this graphic or should we use that graphic? Should we be doing more LinkedIn, more Google ads, more Facebook ads, etc.? That skill set is a big deal, so you're going to want to stay tuned. Quick recap of the social media news of the day. Apple and Google crowd out the competition with default apps. The monopolization of these international global entities extends to the app space. So if you use an iPhone or Android phone, chances are the majority of your most used apps were made by Apple or Google. So as I've mentioned many times before, politicians are going to continuously fight and debate about what precisely to do with these behemoths. You can make the capitalist argument that they are inventive, that their apps are better, that because of the funding that they have, that we should all be so lucky as to have them in our lives. And of course, you can say, well, it's impossible to compete with them. It is impossible to compete with them. And so the games continue. Trump sues Twitter, Facebook, Google, and CEOs Dorsey, Zuckerberg, and Pichai. CNBC.com. You know, I talked a lot about Trump during the presidential election, and I couldn't help myself today because, again, he's going to sue everybody. I guess I don't care. And final article, Twitter loses immunity over user-generated content in India. This relates to the first article we talked about with the monopoly of apps in the stores because, again, individual governments are going to have to fight on their own terrain. Facebook operates everywhere in every country. Twitter operates globally. So individual governments like the government of India are going to have to say, you know what, not in our country. And they're going to have to fight those battles. Twitter Inc. no more enjoys liability protection against user-generated content in India, as the U.S. microblogging giant has failed to comply with new IT rules. This from Reuters.com. All links to all articles in the description. The Indian government said in a court filing, the statement is the first time Prime Minister Narendra Modi's administration has officially said Twitter has lost its immunity. That obviously is a big, big deal. And news like this spreads. And it's reason number 612 why I think Twitter is a dumpster fire. But that's just me. So if you want to learn a thing or two about why your website is converting or is not converting, ladies and gentlemen, cue the smoke machine. Give me some confetti cannons. It's the one, the only AJ Davis. Yeah. So what should we do to convert better on our websites?
I think the most important thing is to first just know what's happening today. So really knowing that you've got the right data in place and actually talking to customers. I don't mean just send a survey. I mean, get on a phone call, see how they use your site, get their feedback on it.
But we don't want to.
It's tough. It's like our baby, right? We're really attached to what we've done. We've thought really hard about it. There's a lot of biases that we get because we spend so much time thinking about where should the button be? How should we message? And we really need to think about, like, can we test those assumptions and make sure that we're on the right track? And oftentimes talking to people reveals some other assumptions, reveals your assumptions and how you can step away from them and really make things better.
Okay, so let's use the example we talked about, Backstage, which is my sister's site. She sells wigs, cosmetics, that sort of stuff. She's got all these people on social media. How does she create this sort of focus group that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I recommend that she talks to people one-on-one. Focus groups are really well known, but you actually get better results by just spending 30 minutes with someone. You can, make it really informal. Just kind of reach out to your network of followers or previous purchasers and say, hey, can I give you, a gift card in exchange for 30 minutes of your time? You can make it more scientific by using some recruiting tools and finding folks who just aren't familiar with your brand so that you have that fresh perspective. To throw a couple tools out there, userinterviews.com, responded.com, or respondent.io are great tools to find people who are representative customers. And then after you figure out who you're going to talk to, you want to ask them all the same questions. So you need a plan. Like I put together a research plan for our customers. Here's who we're talking to. Here's what we're going to learn. And then here's the detailed play-by-play of all the questions we're going to ask.
So what are some common complaints that people have with websites that owners learn from going through this process?
It depends on how you design the study. So for the first study, for most sites, we're looking to talk to brand new folks to the site, and we find out what the biggest problems are. There's a lot of variety in what it can be, which is why this is a really important question to ask. But recently we did a study and understood that the website was way too complex in how it navigated, how the navigation was set up. They had lots of categories, lots of subcategories, and when participants took a look at it, they said, this is not at all how I would think about this. And they had a much simpler expectation.
Okay. So the website was the website equivalent of Hoarders?
A lot of websites just reflect the business structure, right? So you have people responsible for certain things and certain teams, and then they just kind of roll it up and say, this team gets this part of the nav, this team gets this part, and it's not user-centric. It's not really thinking, how does the customer need to interact with us?
Right. It's not Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein is the doctor. So people roll onto a website. They have their judgments about that website. When people pay you and you go through this whole process, do you ultimately go to conversions on Google Analytics and say, hey, look, we're getting more form fills, we're getting more ebook downloads? If they have it set up to track dollar amount conversions, that's the report you send to folks after a month or 2 or 3?
Yeah, so we do two things. We take a look across time, what's happening, what's our baseline understanding of what the metrics are, conversions to order, conversions to form lead. But then the real value that we add is not just in tracking that over time, but actually running A/B tests. So any individual A/B test is going to be focused on just changing one primary metric. We want more people to add products to cart. So we're going to make that button more obvious on the page. We're going to change the way that the images are interacted with. So for any individual test, there is a, yes, let's go with it. Here's what we learned. And then recommendations for follow-up. There's always things that we learn as we dive deep into data.
And do you have a team of web designers that pop in and just make those changes right on the spot? Or are you saying, hey, you work with your team, you go do this, 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 and that?
We do it. So we manage the full end-to-end process for A/B testing. So that's from creating a plan, what are we going to measure, how are we going to know this worked or not, and then defining what we're actually testing, creating a test design. So the designers on our team or copywriters will create that part, and then our dev team will build the test. Most of our clients are using a tool for server-side testing or for browser-side testing. So those are things like Google Optimize, Optimizely, Monetate. There's a whole bunch of tools out there. Our team works across all of those, and we use those to actually run the test.
So if you are constantly optimizing these clients' websites, why not just look at what they're doing, go, you know what, we can do this too, and then become what's the word to describe it? A conglomerate. Why not stare across the Pacific Ocean from your mansion in San Diego? It's or LA. That's fine. You can do LA or Miami, and just go, I own 12 companies. I know how to optimize these to the end of the earth because that's what I do. And I'm just going to look at all those different industries and just do what they do.
Mm-hmm. That's actually why I do optimization and A/B testing. That's what got me really interested in this. Is the same thing doesn't work for everyone. And so when it doesn't work, it often reveals something else about the business. So I'll give an example, which is a lot of times if a company is offering a free shipping opportunity for customers, you want to make that something customers can see on every page at the top. So that's a test we'll often run with customers early on. We had a customer recently where we ran that test and it actually hurt conversion. So by making the free shipping message, you'll get free shipping if you spend over $100, more obvious, we actually discouraged people who had smaller cart sizes from completing their purchase. So it probably points to a bigger problem for them, which is, hey, do you even have the right free shipping threshold for your target audience? Then leads to other research and other A/B tests that we can run.
I love that. I think that's so interesting. So you don't necessarily solve the problem. You might uncover more problems, but they're problems that people should be aware of, obviously. And it's never that easy, is it? It's never just, oh, it's this one thing and voila, problem solved.
Yeah, it's really about taking like a lean user experience approach or an iterative approach where you're thinking, what's the little bit of improvement I can get now? So oftentimes we will just test something and we'll reveal something else that needs improved on that page. And over time, we realize what customers for this particular type of product or this type of service respond to. So we get, better and bigger returns over time.
I should not judge coaches as harshly as I do. I just am surrounded by coaches. What do you do? I'm a coach. Okay. Why don't I have a warm, fuzzy spot in my heart for coaches? Here's why. I feel like what you're doing is coaching through doing. You're actually doing the conversion optimization. I'm paying you for a service. And in so doing, I learn. That's good coaching to me. Now,
yeah, I haven't thought of it that way. It's an interesting framing of what we do, but we also make a difference on their bottom line while we do it.
But yes, I mean, but in business, it's like, it's not like basketball where you're 45 years old and you can't get out on the court. You can't. You're too old. It's impossible. You can't do it. So you have to be on the sideline. But when it comes to business coaching, it's like you can deliver something and be paid for that, and the learning can be inside of that, if that makes any sense. And so I just get frustrated with business coaches. I maybe I should just hire one because I don't understand it. It could just be my ignorance. It probably is. So I will own that, to all the coaches out there, like, you're so stupid, Kellen. How dare you say these things? But I just feel like businesses are so strapped for cash, especially small ones, that it's like, spend the money on advertising, spend the money on, on a service and learn through that, if that makes any sense. How do you feel about coaches? Do you feel like businesses should invest in that or not?
I mean, I think there's a place for working with people who can provide like an outside perspective, but I think it has a different role, right? Like, I wouldn't want to hire a coach for CRO if they're not in the data, like learning with me, showing what we've actually learned. If they're just kind of guessing and saying, this worked for someone else, maybe you should try it. But I do think there are maybe more strategic level coaching that can be helpful. Like, I kind of think of it as like a valuable coach would be similar to the role of like a professor would play in an MBA program. They're going to pass on their real world experience, giving you sort of a framework to think about things. But for specific skills, I think it's better to like hire experts and learn from them and trust them to do it, rather than trying to just like figure it out by reading a book and trying it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the only time I could ever really see myself jumping into a coaching thing would be with someone who's like, I ran an agency for 20 years and then sold it for 2.3 million. Okay. Then all right, maybe there's something there, where I want to chat with this person. So let's chat a little bit about side projects with you. As someone who does conversion rates, I just feel like there's an opportunity for you to open a business and to just really optimize the crap out of it. I mean, do you have one? Do you have a side business? Do you have an e-com where you could just do the
thing,
optimization? Yeah.
I thought about it. I have lots of interests. And so for me, the way I spend my sort of like side time is I run my own podcast and I like to advise startups. I'm also on some boards. So I actually kind of take the route of like passing what I've learned and rolling it up to kind of a higher level strategy and working with people that way. I think it could be really fun to run an e-com store, but I really like being super specialized. So I think there's other parts of running an e-com store that I don't have the skills for. I'm not sure I want to spend the time putting together that team, because I like to put my energy into really just focusing on the data and improving the customer experience.
Yeah, I get that. I'm similar where, I mean, I own an agency. What I can't go market something else? Come on.
Mhm.
Of course I could, you know. Um, I'm just convinced that by the time this beard grows out, that I'm going to be really rich. And that's science, so we should be fine. I actually, and this is just completely bizarre, but I hit my nail with a electric longboard back in December, and it got all black and blue. And I just would look at it from time to time, and I'd be like, by the time this nail grows back, everything is going to be awesome. I can't explain to you why that thought crossed my head. It just did. And then it did. It took like 3 or 4 months. And sometimes in my life, there are these, there are rhythms,
Mhm.
and things that, a good example, when I wrote my book, a wise person told me, write it in a season. Just write the stupid book in a season. Don't edit it. Don't do anything else. Just write the stupid thing. And I did. I wrote it over a winter, I want to say it was. But getting into those sorts of rhythms of your life that can take months, if not years, is something that I can forget at times. As my mom was apt to say, "This too shall pass," and you want it to pass, whatever that drama is in the moment, or maybe in a day or a week, but it may be months or years. So, let me ask you this: in the seasons of your life, right?
Mhm.
Um, you're coming up on another one, right? So what's that season going to bring? Like this next big stage for you?
Yeah, so our company's been really focused on like e-commerce. Like I think it's a really natural place to do what we do. I personally have worked on lots of software. I've done a lot of research and testing on those types of businesses, but it hasn't been a focus for our team. So we have that's kind of been we're actually in that season already, but it's a season that we're really wanting to like build up our skills, connect with more people and prospects and clients that way. I'm personally really excited about that because software brings something different to the table. Like the kind of change that makes in the world is quite different than something you might sell in an e-commerce store. So I'm super excited about that side of things and like getting up to speed on some of the cool inventive things people have put out in the world over the last few years. It does seem like with COVID, we had a lot of people kind of buckle down and just get innovative. Like I've had this problem that I'm really struggling with and I don't have anywhere else to be, so let me focus on it. So I think that's sort of another area I'm like, the business is focused on, but myself, I'm very excited to like help see those things come into success. The business stories you shared around like these huge companies that are really hard to compete against. Like my personal mission in life is to help small businesses become medium businesses and medium businesses become large businesses so that it's a more competitive landscape. I think it's better for everyone if it is.
Yes, I love that. I need to do a shout out to my favorite web browser, which is Acacia, ECOSIA. They talked to Bing. Bing gave them their algorithm, their search results page, basically, and they just take the ad revenue and plant trees with it. And so they've planted over 100 million trees. Let me check real quick. ECOSIA, Acacia.org. 129,177,140. And it's about a tree every tree. I also did research on them because I wanted to see if they were just a hot mess or just liars. And I read a good article that someone really dived in and they're like, I don't think they are. I think they're really doing it. So part of me wants to play that game.
Mm-hmm.
And that what an idea. I mean, what a good idea that was. And for them to execute and just knock that out is just brilliant to me.
Yeah, I don't know the name of it offhand, but I can like send it to you afterward. But I heard recently about a company that's repurposing billboards because they're made with like this sort of canvas material. And in South America and Central America, there are people that are using that to like build roofs for their house and like they're repurposing it. When then a new ad comes up, they're swapping that out. And there's a company, I think they're in SoCal, and they basically take that and they're creating like handbags and purses with it. So they're like these super fun, colorful things, but it's like reusing things that would, potentially go to waste in the United States otherwise. So there's really cool, inventive things that companies are doing that can be like multi-purpose, right? You can make a profit, but also like make the world a little bit better along the way too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about cause marketing for years and years and years. I hired a staff member to literally go into a BNI chapter and only sell cause marketing.
Mhm.
Didn't work. Shocker. Most of my ideas don't work, AJ.
That's
Do
what
most of yours?
experimentation is. I mean, everything. So our company is called Experiment Zone, and our whole, like our theme for with our clients is experimentation. But even internally, everything we do is an experiment, which means there's no failure. It's just learning. So if you think about life that way, you're going to make bigger strides anyway, right? The net effect is being more forward than you'd be if you stood in place and just did things perfectly.
Yeah, I'm okay with calling it failure, and that it took me a long time just to get there, and just I don't even want to say the story that popped into my head. It just will raise my blood pressure. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, how many shots did Michael Jordan miss? You know, so many. I mean, game-winning shots where they're like, give it to Jordan and buzzer beater clank off the backboard and just nothing, air ball. You know, just didn't do it. So I don't want to get into that like world of motivational speaking right now. Not interested. We've all talked about it a million times. So is it to you a money game? Like how much of it is just motivation based on personal finances? If you're being honest with yourself, like how much of it is like, yeah.
Like for why I have a company?
Yeah, you know, why you do what you do, you know, make money, you don't have a boss. I mean, why are you doing what you're doing? And don't tell me it's for the small business. Like, let's not talk about that.
It is a little bit, but you know, I think it's for me, it's like being able to choose how I spend my day, right? It's like,
yes,
if there's something interesting that I want to dig deep into, I can do that. I have the flexibility to choose my schedule. I have the flexibility to choose who I work with, who I don't work with. I'm building an awesome team who we have a lot of fun, but we're all remote. And so like we all kind of get to have that same cultural flexibility stuff. Yeah. It's not about the money, but I hope someday, like, you know, it outpaces where it is actually already outpacing where I'd be otherwise. But I think it's about the potential, right? It's like the potential lifestyle that we can all have, the potential like revenue that can come in, that just like the trajectory of being an employee somewhere is just not as steep as being a business owner. So yes, money, yes, time, yes, flexibility, yes to lots of things. It's got a lot of positives.
My son literally is downstairs right now watching something. I mean, we're so similar. I love having a clone. Like I have learned so much about myself having a clone. Right now, my daughter and my daughter's mama are in North Dakota, and they are clones. So they are literally doing all the activities, right? They're running around, going here, going there, doing this, doing that. And I know how my son would react, and I know how I would react in that sort of situation. And it's just so interesting. Know thyself as you get older. You know, it's like, dude, so I'm 37. I got a pretty good grip on what makes me happy at this point, you know, and at this point, I'm able to spend the amount of time that my kids deserve because of the choices I've made career-wise. And I have tried desperately to give that to all my staff. So you and I are in very similar boats. I am all about remote work. I think, and I'll get on my soapbox, I apologize to all the listeners. You've heard me say it before, but I'm going to say it again. It bears repeating. The global greenhouse gas emissions that we are, just that alone, we could be saving the lives of our staff by not forcing them to go to a physical location. Driving is stressful. It bumps cortisol, and it's just, it's so barbaric and prehistoric and crazy to me that people get into these death boxes to go, right, stare at someone else in the eyeballs. I am so against offices. I cannot possibly put it into words. And there's so many people that are just for them. And then these global tech companies like Facebook are all patting themselves on the back for like doing like half remote and this sort of stuff. And I'm like, you should be leading the way. You should be fully remote, all of you, forever and always. So how into remote work are you, and how much of your culture is surrounded in that?
Yeah, like 100%. I mean, I worked at some tech, like high tech companies for quite a few years, and like we were building products to enable people to collaborate across the world, across time zones, make it easy just to be, right? And then we all had to get ourselves into the office physically. And it felt like such a contradiction that like we should be taking advantage of all these things that have come and have been created and support remote work. I got to listen to a lot of podcasts, like got to listen to a lot of stuff like while commuting, but I still would arrive at work like feeling heavy and like tired and like unmotivated. And now I get to like wake up in the morning, make this cup of coffee and just like get started, work on what I want to work on. And then like when I need to take a break or I need to take the dogs for a walk, I have the ability to just like step away without having to get in my car and have another stressful experience to do that. So I think inevitably that's where we're all headed, is being able to work from anywhere for jobs that can support that. And more jobs are supporting it. So I'm hoping that COVID at least like nudged a lot of businesses to think carefully about it, but we'll see what ends up happening, especially as people start doing that split in-person remote thing in the fall.
Amen. So we got someone spamming us on Twitch. Want to become famous? Buy followers. Thank you, Twitch spamming bot, for joining us. So yes, I could not possibly agree more with that. In developed countries, we see the birth rate go down. And so I do believe that we are going to figure out population eventually. I really do. When it comes to electric cars, that's a huge deal. Solar power is going to become so important. Kern County, California, here in Las Vegas. I mean, we've got so much space to harvest the power of the sun. So I am bullish on humanity, dare I say. And I know I'm not supposed to say that, because when you say that, then people go, we're fine. That's not what I'm saying. We're not fine. There's a lot that we have to do. The earth itself is an organism. It's like a cell. It has an immune system. It is letting us know that. But I really do feel that humanity is going to prevail through all of this insanity. And we're going to look back on this as a time of just unbelievable stress. And I think that our ability to move through this time, we need to pat ourselves on the back, just as people living in this time. Again, our ancestors are going to look at us, not again, I haven't mentioned this yet, but we are the generation that's going to be sort of the Adam and Eve of content. So our great grandkids, if you have children, those children have children, are going to be able to watch hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of us. And there is no generation where that exists unless you were famous, like in the 80s. Then maybe you had like a TV show or something, or maybe some home videos and stuff. But we are the generation. And so it's important for us to understand that responsibility that we have, because think about that, 100,000 years from now, this is it. Like they'll go all the way back to these videos and these conversations and how we were talking. Oh, their English is so weird. They used to talk in that weird way, that old weird English way. And so why don't you talk to folks 10,000 years from now that are watching this and want to know about what life was like?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like algorithms, just like mass, like processing all this stuff anyways. But I think, I think they're going to think it's like weird that we even had to talk about remote work. They're going to think it's weird that we work because we won't need to work in the future. And I think that's the plan that I think we're struggling with as humanity, is like figuring out how do we manage that. So to those people 10,000 years from now, great job figuring it out. We're really excited to see what it looks like.
I love that. Okay, well, we're wrapping up the show, 10:59. I'm going to do a quick pitch for the show and make sure that you get the final word. AJ Davis, y'all know the drill, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. To everyone downloading the podcast, let's go. The numbers are definitely growing, and I could not possibly appreciate it more. Tell a friend, why don't you? YouTube.com/Send It Rising is where you can watch the live show, again, 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. iTunes, Spotify, and 12 other podcast platforms, Deezer, and God knows what else. Streaming live on Twitter at Kellen Kautzman, my personal LinkedIn page, Kellen Kautzman again, the Send It Rising Facebook page. Send It Rising is an ad agency. Everything you could possibly want from said ad agency, WordPress websites, SEO, pay-per-click, LinkedIn ads, Facebook ads, graphic design, etc. Our guest today, AJ Davis, clearly a smart cookie. Very cool conversation. You should check her out. Where exactly? She's going to tell you. Go ahead, AJ.
Check us out at experimentzone.com. We've got a cool giveaway right now where we're going to give free advice about your website. So check out the report card giveaway and you'll get personalized responses about, hey, you've got to do these things on your site to help connect with your audience and get better conversions.
Take her up on that. Everyone who is not a business owner doesn't understand that these promotions that we offer to potential clients, they are legitimate. They are legitimate promotions. It's not garbage. It's not, hey, sign up for it. We're going to pitch you the whole time. No, there's actual value there. So if you, and it's probably like a $400 value or $500 something, I don't know, some dollar amount, you know what I mean, of actual value that AJ and her team of well-paid intellects will deliver to you. So take her up on that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's marketing as a foreign language for this, the 261st episode. We'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.